everyone, I'm Rebecca Benendijk and I am the new CFO, your Chief Fun Officer. I've just come in from a snowy walk just west of Toronto here, and I jumped on a call with Doug Gold all the way from New Zealand, who I came across in my research, and he wrote the book about fun is serious business. And he is an expert at fun in the corporate world, in business, in life. And I can't wait to share with you everything that we said. He actually didn't know he was going to be on the CFO show, and neither did I. But our conversation was so rich and full of amazing little tidbits that I think you're going to get a lot out of. So watch what's coming up, and I hope you learned something. Talk to you soon. So what I'm trying to do is kind of redefine what fun is, so that when I work with companies or clients, fun doesn't have to look like skydiving or having a party on Friday afternoon or making sure you have beer or whatever. Fun can be investing $50,000 into your business if you want, or fun is creating those positive, thriving relationships within a business, between sales and marketing companies, or departments. It's fun is just it's not frivolous. It's serious.
It's an environment. It's creating an environment in which people can enjoy themselves, which people can challenge without fear of retribution, that people can make mistakes and they're not criticized for it as long as they learn from it. And it really is about a business philosophy in general that revolves around looking after people and making their time at work enjoyable. I mean, after all, people spend more time at work than they do doing anything else in their lives. So it's important that time, if you want them to work harder, if you want them to be more productive, if you want them to stay longer, if you want to retain them, then you've got to create a work environment that's conducive to performance and where people can enjoy themselves, where they actually look forward to coming to work rather than saying, hey, I'll arrive at 8 o'clock and I'll leave at 5 o'clock and I'll hate what I do in between. So you've got to create that sort of environment so that people do enjoy their time there because they spend so much time at work.
Yeah, and I guess for me, like my generation, I personally lived quite a pretty fun life. Like I have my Bachelor of Education and I was a teacher and I'm a voiceover actress and I'm a professional singer-songwriter and all kinds of different stuff. But I put the stop on the teaching because I wasn't enjoyable, and I refused to live just for my weekends and summers.
Exactly.
Right? People said, oh, but you've got a great job. It's going to pay you this much money and you're going to have every weekend and every summer off for 30 years. And I'm going, 30 years? I have to do the Monday to Friday?
Exactly. That's exactly right.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was easy and natural for me, but I feel like there's a lot of other people that are needing more guidance. And that's kind of what my mission is now, is to help guide them to a space and I guess hold that space for them so that they can transition as well into either a job they love or to help CEOs create that culture that will be sustainable and will attract the people that are going to stay with their company as a family member more than a team member, a family member that's going to stay for a long time. And here's how you can create and design that. So
that's exactly right. And one of the important things, and one of the things a lot of companies mistakes a lot of companies make, is they see fun through the eyes of management. The key is to see fun through the eyes of staff. We've done a lot of things, and bear in mind this is going back a long time, Rebecca. This is 20 odd years ago. So and some of the things that we do are probably not appropriate these days, but maybe
we need it.
Maybe. But it's a matter of seeing fun through the eyes of staff, not through the eyes of management.
Right.
Because we've done a lot of things in the past that I personally, didn't get a great deal of enjoyment out of, but staff loved. And therefore that's the important thing. It's how they feel about it, not how management feels about it, that determines whether you've got a successful sort of fun-based strategy.
Well, and there again, you hit on something really important. You said it's what the staff. So each staff, they're different people.
Correct.
So you have to identify what's going to be fun for each person. Like
Correct.
I think of fun as when team members are invested in the company. You know, they're planning a project where actually a percentage of these sales are going towards an organization or a non-for-profit locally that they are connected to. Well,
Sure.
that's going to involve them, and they're going to get excited about it, and they may get other team members excited about it. And you, if you're CEO, may not care as much.
Exactly.
Your team
Yeah,
is going to be working
that's
and
right.
being more productive because of that.
That's why it's more about an environment than it is about any specific events. I mean,
Yeah.
we took all of our staff overseas often. We did trips to London with staff, with everyone from the receptionist up to Hawaii to Australia to Penang
Yeah.
to Fiji. And okay, that's the sort of the obvious areas where people had had a lot of fun and really enjoyed themselves.
Mhm.
But it's more about creating an environment that works for everybody,
Mhm.
not just for a few people who have got specific ideas about what they enjoy. It's creating an environment in which everyone can flourish, and everyone's individuality is respected as well. Because I've always believed that people have different ways of doing things, and you've got to allow them the flexibility to do that. I mean, for example, if someone's faced with a brick wall, and the objective is to get to the other side of it, you'll have some people that would burrow underneath it, dig a hole underneath it.
Yep.
You'd have someone who'd climb over the top. You'd have someone who'd sneak round the sides, and you'd probably have someone who smashes it over.
Yes.
They've achieved the objective, and as long as they do so within the bounds of ethics and legality,
Yep.
then it doesn't really matter how they get to the other side.
Right.
And a lot of companies are very prescriptive in terms of how they want things done,
Yeah.
whereas I believe in parameters. I believe in creating certain parameters. Don't ever go outside them, because if you go outside of those parameters, you're in trouble. But
Right.
within those parameters, you can do it whatever way that suits you, whatever way reflects your individuality and your way of doing it. Because at the end of the day, it's about an objective,
Yeah.
not about only one way of achieving that objective.
Yeah. Well, and isn't it kind of ironic as you're speaking? I'm thinking about my days as a grade 7-8 teacher and how we actually encouraged the children to come up with variety of ways to get to the answer. You know, that's the
Sure.
whole goal in math. Think of a variety of ways to get to the same answer. But then when they become an adult and now they're in corporate world, it's like, oh, I have to do this and I have to do this or else my boss isn't going to be happy with me. I was talking to a girl
Exactly.
the
Yeah.
other day and she said, well, I work really well remotely, but I feel obliged to go into the office because everyone else is super happy to be going back to the office. And it's
Exactly. Yeah.
exactly what you just said. And I want to say to her, but you're getting the result in a different way.
Exactly.
You
Yeah.
have to present that to your boss.
Yeah.
But I guess that's a culture right now where she's in fear. She's
Yeah.
worried
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
about what he's going to think about her because he's this,
Yeah.
multimillionaire or whatever. So she doesn't want to upset the equilibrium, I
Equilibrium. Yeah.
suppose, in the office.
Exactly.
But
And
it's
that's
that
and that's
culture.
crazy.
It is crazy.
Because as I say, the people do things in different ways, and if people only do what they know will be accepted, then
Yeah.
you get mediocrity,
Yeah.
because people are fearful of making mistakes. Whereas mistakes should be embraced. I mean, I've made I've made more mistakes than most people combined. um, and you gain something from that. And if people make a mistake, they shouldn't be criticised for it. They need to look at it. They need to understand why they made a mistake, and you certainly don't want them to be making the same mistake again. But you certainly do not want to be so
Right.
hard on people that they're fearful of doing something out of the ordinary. Because, as I say, all you'll get is mediocrity if people
Yeah.
only do what they know won't be criticised.
Yeah.
Um,
And not just mediocrity. I think like they will not even have the freedom to be innovative and creative the way they could be naturally.
correct.
Because there's not even an environment for that would nourish that would
Yeah.
encourage it. because so they don't
Exactly.
even, their minds don't even get to that creative place where they're coming up with new ideas for the business
No.
to advance, and this and this and this, and let's try that,
Yeah.
and let's experiment here. They
Exactly.
don't even get there.
Exactly.
They just come in
And
at
and
9 and
that's
leave at 5.
and that innovation is a really critical component of creating a great company, and it's a critical component of giving staff the satisfaction they deserve as well. Because if they, if they know that they can try something, it may or may not work, but if they know they can try it, then they get a much greater degree of satisfaction than doing what somebody else tells them to do,
Yeah.
even though they may not believe that it's the right way to do it. So
Yeah.
so there's a whole lot of things, and the other thing, Rebecca, is that staff retention is just so critical these days. The cost of hiring and training a new staff member, and you might well make a mistake, is far greater than any cost, as I say, of doing overseas trips or whatever. There's a very sound business reason for creating
Yeah.
that sort of environment, and I'm pretty proud to say that we had by far the lowest staff turnover in radio, in this country, and in our other media company as well, because people didn't want to go elsewhere. We
Right.
didn't pay the highest salaries,
That
but
doesn't
we
matter
we
though.
we we gave them a lot of satisfaction in other areas, and that's important.
Can you remember like one example of, all the things we're talking about? Do you remember an example of somebody making a mistake and it turning into something, I don't know, they threw something out there, let's try this on the radio, and everyone's like, I don't know about that. And then they tried it and it was a huge success or something like that?
Yeah, we did. We ran a promotion. It was a staff, a staff member who came up with the idea, because one of the things in radio, lots of prizes. You give away lots of prizes, money and trips and
Yeah.
all that sort of thing,
Yes.
and that's fine, and people love it or whatever. But one staff member came to me one day and said, "What if we gave away a prize that money can't buy?" And I thought, yeah, that sounds pretty interesting. And his idea was that we went to we called it Rock Relics, and we went to Sotheby's in London and we bought a whole lot of memorabilia. We bought Elton John's boots, we bought a John Lennon cap, we bought several Beatles. This is going back a few years, but not quite back as far as the Beatles. But and we bought signed albums. We bought a whole lot of different rock star memorabilia,
Cool.
and we ran this Rock Relics promotion. It was huge, because people, this is not, you can't just go into a store or whatever and buy a pair of Elton John's boots or John Lennon's cap. And it was a huge promotion, and that was an idea that came from staff. At that time we already had a promotion organised for that particular period, but just changed direction just like that. It was such a great idea
Yeah.
that and what that did is that actually spawned a series of contests with prizes that money couldn't buy. The next one we did was carry the Olympic torch, which in when the Olympics were in the US, as they often do, they sold everything, and they sold a mile. You could buy a mile of carrying the Olympic torch. So I found out about this, and we bought a mile where someone could carry the Olympic torch. So I ran a promotion on air, carry the Olympic torch, and someone got the opportunity. It was a trip, obviously, because we flew them to the States, and they got to carry the Olympic torch for a mile. I mean, and then following on from that, we did Star Trek, where we organised a bit part in a movie for a listener. So someone, once again, it was a trip to the States, and a listener got the chance to play a walk-on role in a movie. I can't remember what it was. So that spawned a whole lot of different contests flowing from that Rock Relics, which the whole thing revolved around his idea of giving away rock star memorabilia, and the idea of a prize that money can't buy. So that's a classic example. But I think the thing is, you've got to encourage creativity. in any business, because no one has a monopoly on ideas.
No.
And we always used to do monthly, at the end of each month, the last Friday of the month, it'd be just a brainstorming afternoon. And the whole, and there were rules around it that nobody was allowed to criticize. You were allowed to say, hey, I think we could make this better by doing this, but you were never allowed to say this is a bad idea. If you did, you got a yellow card and you were sent out. Because that's negativity.
Yeah.
And if you want to have creativity, it's got to be an environment of positivity.
Yeah.
So you can't have anyone criticizing what anyone else says, otherwise no one will say anything.
Yeah.
So it's really important and once again, that gets back to environment, gets back to creating a work environment that's where people can have some fun. They work hard. There've got to be good business disciplines in place. You can't ignore good business disciplines, but you can achieve that and at the same time, create an environment of creativity and where people have fun. I remember once every quarter we used to do a customer a customer service study, I guess, not a study, but all of our salespeople had to contact all of their clients over 2 days and just make sure they were satisfied, update the records, etc. We did that once a quarter, and nobody looked forward. Everybody hated it, right? Because it was it was on the phone all day, and people would find excuses, and they would, and what was supposed to be 2 days ended up being 4 or 5 days, and a lot of lost productivity.
Yeah.
So we decided that, we'd make sure everybody was in there, but every hour, 10 minutes in every hour, we brought in an entertainer. So we had a comedian come in, we had an opera singer come in, we had a ventriloquist come in, we had a mime artist come in. So every hour there was some entertainment, and that entertainment was not just for the salespeople; it was for the whole staff. Everybody stopped, at 50 minutes to the hour.
Yep.
50 minutes past the hour, 10 minutes to the hour, and we had these small concerts, and that meant that everybody looked forward to that quarterly. Yeah, and everybody looked forward to doing that quarterly survey of clients, right? Because they had a lot of fun doing it. It was an enjoyable day instead of being a difficult day that they they didn't want to participate in.
Yeah. And simultaneously, you supported local business and local artists.
Exactly. Yeah. And funnily enough, we found that we had some staff that were talented, and they would do a 10-minute impromptu concert or impromptu show. So there were other benefits that flowed from that. So and I think a lot of it's also about seizing the moment. I remember when we first started More FM, and it was a brand new station. It didn't exist before. We bought a frequency, and we set it up from scratch. So we had salespeople hired 6 weeks, in advance. We were pre-selling, and we'd reached a milestone. We'd reached $1 million in forward sales before we even turned the microphone on. And as I say, this is going back 25 years or more than 25 years. So $1 million was a lot of money in those days, and we hadn't even turned the microphone on. It was a great achievement. And I happened to be down at a school reunion in a small town that I was brought up in, and I saw these souvenir spoons. I don't know whether you know them, the tacky souvenir spoons, collectibles. Yeah.
I've seen them in the UK.
And it was a Temuka High School reunion souvenir spoon. So on the spur of the moment, I bought one for each of the salespeople, and I wrapped it up in gold paper and made a big presentation to sales staff saying this is in recognition of an outstanding effort in achieving $1 million in forward sales, etc. And they opened these up, and of course here was the spoon, and you could see the dismay on people's faces when they opened it up. It was just a bit of fun.
Yeah.
But that assumed a huge amount of importance in our company,
Hmm.
because after that, every month, when a salesperson achieved their target, they got another spoon. Um,
Interesting.
and the top sales performer got a gold spoon. And and we had Queen Elizabeth, we had Elvis Presley spoons, we had Queen Elizabeth coronation spoons, we had religious spoons, we had spoons from Hong Kong, China, all over the
Yeah.
world. And whenever we had an event to celebrate, we'd do a spoon parade down the main street of Wellington. So everybody had to wear their spoons. Some wore them like a row of medals. One staff member wore them like a sporran, like a Scottish sporran.
Yeah.
Some
Yeah.
had them in their hair, whatever. But whenever we had something to celebrate, we'd have a spoon parade. And it's crazy. I mean, it's stupid. People walking down the main street with spoons all
All
over
over
them.
them.
And but that sort of epitomized what we were: unconventional, creative, different,
I love
prepared
it.
to push the boundaries. And that became part of our culture. And
Yeah.
the funny thing was that everybody had that Temuka High School reunion spoon in pride of place, because that told everybody they were an original staff member, that they were,
Oh,
one of the originals. And so
oh,
that was a prized possession. Now, it
yeah.
sounds pretty stupid, collecting spoons and doing spoon parades. But that became part of the culture,
Yeah.
and that assumed an importance way, way beyond, um, buying some souvenir spoons at a high school reunion.
Right. Or
It's
a
about
$1,000.
seizing the opportunity.
Yeah, yeah. And the thing
Yeah,
is, that's it. The people that will be retired from the job, they'll remember the spoon parades more than
yeah,
they'll remember the raise they got in
exactly,
1985.
exactly.
You
We
know?
never we
Yeah.
never gave staff cash bonuses or cash rewards. We take them on, as I said, we did trips to London, we did trips to Hawaii,
That's great.
because cash, what do people do with cash? They spend it on groceries, they pay their electricity bill,
Yeah.
they pay their mortgage.
Yeah.
You take them on a trip, and that's a memory.
Yeah. Absolutely.
That creates memories. And I was talking to one of our ex-staff members just the other day, and he was talking about the trip to Hawaii,
Yeah.
which, as I say, was 20 odd years ago. And he
Experience.
still remembered. He talked about things we did.
Mm-hmm.
And so those sorts of rewards, they
Yeah.
create memories,
Yeah.
and memories are invaluable, and memories last.
Mhm.
Cash doesn't last.
No. And that's like I think that in life too. I have I can't remember how many, 5 nephews and a niece.
Yep.
And I have the same philosophy with them. I don't want to buy them stuff that they're going to forget who gave them that. I take them on an outing or a date with
Yeah,
Aunt Becca.
exactly.
They get to go on a date with me, and this is just us. And they remember that. They ask for it now. They go, "Oh, when is
Of
my date
course.
with Aunt Becca?" So
Yeah, exactly.
if we can transfer this
Yeah.
philosophy into our corporate. So I want to ask you, what do you think is like the number one, or maybe a couple things that would be stopping more companies? Like, we're talking about this, you implemented this 20, 30 years ago, but it was a really unconventional way. But it is becoming more mainstream as we talk about it more, as people start realizing it's not about the money, it's about what's my quality of life on the day to day.
Exactly.
What's
Yeah.
stopping them? What's stopping companies these days
Well,
from?
there are a number of things that stop it. I mean, a lot of CEOs are frightened of being challenged.
Yeah.
Um, they don't want to give staff too much freedom.
Mm-hmm.
They want to control. A lot of them are control freaks, and therefore are not prepared to give people the flexibility to express their individuality and to do things differently. So they're very, very prescriptive. And a lot of that is that they themselves are concerned about what people above will think, the boards and
if they're going to fail.
their employers. So you get a very sterile environment,
Mm-hmm.
and it always comes from the top, because, as I say, some people just are not prepared to be challenged. They're not prepared to admit that someone might actually be better than them, or someone might have a better idea. A lot of CEOs think they have the monopoly on strategy,
Yeah.
when in fact they're probably the people furthest removed, the people who really determine a company's strategy are the people who are on the ground,
Yeah.
other people who are interfacing with customers and understand what the challenges and issues are. Sure, a CEO might have to pull all that together,
Yeah.
but the key elements of an effective business philosophy or strategy, come from the bottom,
Yeah.
not from the top. I've always been a great believer in the inverted pyramid. You get the normal pyramid has, the CEO at the top, the next level down, the next level down. You turn that pyramid upside down, and right at the top are the people who are actually doing the work. They're the most important.
Yeah.
And as you go down to the peak of the pyramid, which is now upside down,
Yep.
and you get to the bottom, that's the least important person.
Yeah. They don't
and
want
it's
to admit that, though. I think they.
No one wants to. And
No.
the other thing is that a lot of CEOs have this need almost to claim credit for everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
They'll claim credit. A staff member comes up with a great idea.
Yeah.
What happens? The CEO claims credit. And what does that make the staff member feel? That makes them feel they're not valued, that they're making these contributions and someone else is taking the benefit.
Credit.
And once again, I believe in the reverse. I've always give, even if it's something that I've initiated, I will always give staff credit for that, and not take credit yourself, because I don't need to take credit.
You shouldn't need to.
I'm confident enough in my own ability not to need to get praise from somebody else.
Yeah.
So you give credit, and I think that's a huge stumbling block. And I think there's also a fear of the unknown, that a lot of CEOs are just frightened to loosen the reins.
Yeah.
They talk about it.
They want to know the ROI. They want to know the bottom line. They want to know how much here and here.
Yeah. They're not prepared to take the risk.
Yeah.
And the rewards that come from that risk are far greater than the rewards if you don't take that risk.
Yeah.
So it's CEOs often have quite rigid structures, and it goes back to my point before about creating parameters, not directives. Do it this way. That's the way we do it. To me, that's not right. That's the way one person does it, not the way everybody does it. And that's why I think creating parameters within which people can have some freedom and some flexibility will get the best out of them. But a lot of companies are not prepared to do that.
What would you say to the CEO who actually believes in what we're talking about, but feels stuck in his position because of that upper level, and he or she is going, yes, I want to create better culture, but I don't know how. I don't know what to do. I'm stuck because of the red tape and all the rules and all the policies that they'd have to go through to actually make a change. What would you say to them?
Well, I'd say just do it. I mean, it's at some point you actually have to say, I'm going to try this. There's a risk attached to it, but quite frankly, the risk is not not significant. Unless you're prepared to let people make mistakes, unless you're prepared to make mistakes yourself, then it goes back to that whole point. If you only do what you know will not be criticized, you'll never move further ahead. You'll never achieve anything. So at some point, they've actually got to, and only they can do it. Nobody, people can tell them, go ahead and do it, but unless they confront it themselves and are prepared to say, okay, I'm going to try this. You don't have to go wholesale. You don't have to do everything today. I mean, just start some initiatives, where you involve staff a bit more, and a lot of it's intuitive. I don't think there's any prescription or any rules around it. It's like seizing the opportunity. It's like the Temuka High School reunion spoons. I mean, you can't sort of plan that. And sometimes you've just got to seize the opportunity, and a lot of these things are intuitive. You just feel it's right, and sometimes you're wrong, and you just take that on the chin and move on. But more often, more often than not, you'll come out of it on the right side, not the wrong side.
Yeah.
And I think it generally boils down to fear and lack of confidence.
Yeah.
Lack
True.
of confidence in their own ability. If they
Yeah.
keep doing it the same way they've always done it, there's very little risk attached to that,
Yeah. Yeah.
because it's tried and proven. They've done it that way for 20 years or 30 years or whatever.
Yep.
So they know there's no risk.
Mm-hmm.
And you also get a lot of decision by committee, where everybody protects their own backside by sharing the risk, by not taking
Yeah.
individual
Take it on.
responsibility. It's a collective, decision by committee. So you've got to take personal responsibility and be accountable.
Yeah.
But you got to do it. You just got
And
to
when
take
you
the
do
risk.
it, I also find, and I tell people, once you do it, you also get to take credit for actually taking the step.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You get to, I say, worst case scenario, if you stay where you're at and don't do anything different, what's the worst case scenario? Like, what do you have to lose? And then what
Exactly.
do you have to lose if you actually, tell your boss that you'd like to work remotely and continue that because that resonates with you better and you work
Exactly. Yeah.
productively? What is the worst case scenario? And then what do you have to lose if you don't say anything? And it's always way higher what you have
Of
to
course.
lose if you just stay where you're at rather than take a risk and
Absolutely.
ask for what you're wanting. Worst case scenario is they say no and you go, oh, actually maybe this isn't the place I want to work, and then you find
Exactly. Yeah.
where you want to work. I mean, the wins for speaking up, for taking this step forward, it always outweigh.
Yeah. And funnily enough, the CEO will enjoy his job more, or her job more as well. It's when you actually take that step. I worked in for a public service radio station initially, where everything was prescriptive. I mean, nobody did anything out of the ordinary, and I just found it so suffocating.
Yeah.
And I was a senior manager within that organization. And I just found it so suffocating because I had ideas, I had things that I thought would improve, the way the organisation operated. They all fell on deaf ears, and you did things the same way. When you actually go out and do it, and I went into before I purchased my own stations. I worked for a private radio organisation, and that started to set the tone for the future.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed my job a hell of a lot more by
Right.
letting other people enjoy their jobs more.
Yeah.
The flow-on effect is I enjoyed mine more.
Yeah.
So the CEO gets a benefit as well as the staff.
That's an important lesson too, because there's less
Yeah.
pressure on them
Yeah,
to
exactly.
be making all the decisions. And what if they do it wrong? Well, now we're a team and we're going to make mistakes together, and then we're going to have creative solutions together because we're going to solve it. And then most of the time I find the company's revenues are increasing because of that, because you're taking
Absolutely.
and sharing.
No question about that. I mean, I've got plenty of examples of how that.
Share some.
And the other thing is, it's fantastic to see staff flourish.
Yeah.
Because quite often you find that one of the amazing things is you actually sometimes find that people who are not outspoken is the wrong word, but people who don't normally contribute or just get on with their jobs and don't say anything because they know it's not their, they're not expected to do anything other than their job. Sometimes you find those people absolutely flourish and come up with some fantastic contribution, to the company's success, because they're given that opportunity to be more than what their job description is.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and a lot of times I find too different personalities, whereas I'm a very outspoken, extroverted person. I have no problem sharing my idea, even if it sounds stupid to somebody.
Right.
I don't care. But a lot of people do care, and they've been
Of course.
conditioned to care especially within corporate, I think. But if they were in this different culture, like you're saying, I would say a lot of introverts too who take a little bit of time. It's like the student in my class who you ask a question and like 4 hands go up really, really fast. But if you wait another minute or two, the other hands that go up, they're like
slowly. Yeah, exactly.
And then you get to them and they're like, they got it all figured out. And you're like, wow, but it just takes a little time to process. So same in a work environment, give them that time to really get used to this new culture of no fear. And I'm able to say my opinions. I'm not going to get fired. Nobody's going to think I'm stupid. I'm not going to get teased later in an adult environment, and then you're going to have pretty incredible things happen. Yeah.
You do. Yeah. And, the monthly brainstorming sessions that I talked about earlier on, I mean, everybody from the receptionist up was involved, and an environment where criticism was not allowed. I mean, no criticism whatsoever, and that enables people, and people were able, and we encouraged people to talk about improvements or ideas they had for areas well outside their own jobs. They could talk about anything on the station. And I think that's just important for people. Just gives them more satisfaction, but it makes them feel that they're part of it. Because the thing in any organization, and certainly in radio, your staff fit into roughly sort of 3 categories. You have your superstars, you have your top performers, and they will always be top performers, whether they're working for me, whether they're working for you, or any company down the road. It's in their genes. They are just driven to perform.
Yeah.
You have about 80% in the middle who are average or slightly above average. They do a good job. They come to work. They're not lazy. They do contribute, but they're never going to be superstars. That's just because they're not motivated that way. And you have the other 10%. Quite frankly, no matter what effort you put into them, they're probably not going to make it. And and they know that, and they're not satisfied in what they do, and they probably leave.
Right.
The key to success is that 80% in the middle. It's not the superstars. Most companies focus on those superstars, and they get all the best treatment, they get all the perks, they get all the benefits. But that's wrong. It's the 80% in the middle that determine how successful you are. If you can get that 80% working 10% harder and being 10% more productive, imagine what that does to your company. Imagine what that does to your bottom line. Because they are most of your workforce, and if they feel connected, if they feel that their contribution is valued, they'll do that bit extra. And it only takes, as say, 80% of your staff working 10% harder and being 10% more productive. That's your company. That's your business. Not the 10% at the top, because they'll always perform.
They'll always, they're like the type A or like university. They're going to get an A+ no matter what. But it's the B students that, if you can somehow figure out what makes them tick, and what brings them joy, and incorporate that into their everyday life, into their work. Exactly.
And if you can make them feel important. They're important to the company, because those people often get overlooked.
Most of the time they do. They're the people in the factory that are on the floor, right? They're the ones actually doing the factory work that actually see, oh, this would be way better if it just ran like this, but they never say anything because they know that nobody there's going to listen.
But they want to do better. So if you make them feel important, and make them feel that they're important contributors, they will respond. A lot of companies talk about it, and pay lip service, but you've actually got to embrace it. You've actually got to say, this is our culture. This is part of our company. This is our culture. This is the way we do business. More FM, I mean, we didn't have anything as sophisticated as a mission statement or a company charter, but we had a way of doing business. We summed it up in 3 words: service, excellence, fun. Look after your advertisers and listeners better than anyone else in the market. Do whatever you do to the absolute best of your ability and have a bloody good time doing it.
Yeah.
Get those three things right, and everything else pretty much falls into place.
Yeah.
And you know, and fun is a critical element of that.
Well, I hope you enjoyed the chat, the very spontaneous chat that I had with Doug today. I know I learned something, and I hope that you're inspired and that you've learned something today. If you're a CEO out there and you're wondering how to make a change in your business, in your corporation, please, I would love to have a call with you and let's discuss what it is that you need in your business to thrive in this world today and how we can make that happen for you. Jump on a call with me, and I look forward to talking to you. Have a great day.